Hello everyone, welcome to PRP Coding YouTube channel. I am Praveen Ravindran Pillai. In this session, I shall explain about constructors in Java. So let's start. I have created a class student with two private fields ID and name. Then I have added the setter and getter methods for these private fields. Here you can see set ID, set name, get ID and get name. Now in the main method, I have created the object of the student class. Then, by using the setter methods, the ID and name fields are initialized. By using the getter methods, the ID and name is printed in the console. In part 3, I have explained about encapsulation Java using setter and getter methods. If you have not seen it, I highly recommend to watch that video. The link is shared in the description below. So now, if you look at this code, the student object is first created and then the ID and name fields are assigned with values 1 and PRP by using the setter methods. Now, consider a situation where we want to initialize the values of private fields at the time of object creation. So what do you mean by that? So I want to assign the values of ID and name when I say student is equal to new student. Is that possible in Java? Absolutely. For that, we use constructors. So what is a constructor? A constructor is a specialized setter whose name is same as the class name without any return type. Let me repeat. A constructor is a specialized setter. So if you look at a setter here, so this is a setter which is having a name set ID, which is taking a parameter ID which is of type integer. Okay. So a constructor is a specialized setter. That means a constructor is like a method whose name is same as the class name. So here I can say the name of the constructor is same as the class name. So what is the name of the class? It is student and without any return type. Okay. So constructor is a specialized setter whose name is same as the class name without any return type. So if you look at here, did I use any return type here? There is no void, no int, no string, nothing, right? And this constructor, since it is a method, it can accept parameters. Is it mandatory to accept parameters? No, but it can accept parameters, right? Yes, it can accept. So here I can say int ID. Okay, so that is possible. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to combine these two setters into one. So what do you mean by that? So here I am passing one parameter, here I am passing one parameter. So I'm going to combine these two parameters here. So here I can say int ID comma string name, and here I will say this dot ID is equal to ID and this dot name is equal to name. Okay. Now, if I scroll down, here you can see there is a red squiggly. It's an error. The compiler is not happy. Now, if I hover, here you can see the constructor student is undefined. But we have created a constructor, right? Then why it is an error? See, if you look at here, this constructor is accepting two parameters. It's accepting an ID which is of type integer and name which is of type string. So to resolve this, we need to pass the values as first parameter is ID. So I will pass that 1 and second parameter it's a string. So let me pass it as PRP. Okay. Immediately the error is gone. Now, if you look at this code, the private fields of the student class are initialized at the time of object creation, right? So the constructor is invoked at the time of object creation. So what do you mean by that? The moment I say new student, this will go and invoke this constructor. Okay. Now this constructor is used to assign values to the private fields, right? In that case, do we need this setter methods anymore? No, right? So let me go and remove this and let me remove it from here as well. Now let me go and run this application and see whether everything is working fine. In the terminal window, run the command java c main.java and java main. And here you can see the output as 1 colon PRP, and that is the value that we have passed in the constructor. So everything is working as expected. Okay, so now let me show you one interesting thing with respect to constructors in Java. So let me go and remove this constructor first. Okay, fine. The moment I removed, there is an error. Okay, so if I hover, here you can see the constructor student int string is undefined. That makes sense, right? The compiler will go and check in the student class, is there a constructor which takes two parameters? Do we have that? No, right? I removed that just now. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is, so let me remove this two parameters here. Okay, fine. But the moment I removed those parameters, the error is gone. How this is working? Do we have a constructor which is taking zero parameters in the student class? I mean parameterless constructor in student class? No, right? Then how this is working? That is because the Java compiler will go and check whether there is a constructor created by the developer. Do we have a constructor right now? No, no constructor. So the Java compiler will go and add a default constructor for us. What is a default constructor? A constructor which takes no parameter. So this is equivalent to having a code like this. We'll say student like this. But we are not able to see this, right? See, if I remove this, still it is working. So behind the scenes, the Java compiler is adding this code. So let me prove that. For that, in the terminal window, let me run the command java c main.java. So what is happening behind the scenes when I say java c main.java? So the code that we have written is getting converted into bytecode. Okay, so is it possible to see the bytecode? Yes. If you click here in the Explorer, here you can see that two dot class file extension, main.class, student.class, and one .java file. These dot class files are called as the bytecodes. We have only one .java file, and why we are having two dot class files? That is because in the main.java we are having one class student as well as one class main. So each class will have its own bytecode. Okay. So now if you look at the student code here in the main.java file, do we have any constructor here? No. So I mentioned that the Java compiler will go and scan if there is a constructor that is created by the developer. If no such constructors are there, the Java compiler will add one default compiler for us, right? Now, if I click on the student.class, so this is the bytecode. Here you can see that the Java compiler has added a default constructor for us. Similarly, if I go to main.class, here also it has added a default constructor for us. See, if I go to main.java in the main class, so if I scroll down, do we have a constructor here in the main? No, right? So if there is no constructors defined in a class, the Java compiler will go and inject one constructor for us. I mean a default constructor for us. Now consider a scenario where the class student is having a constructor which takes two parameters. Then in the main method, we are creating the object of the student class. Here we are not passing any parameters. Immediately we got an error. If I hover, you can see that the constructor student is undefined. Basically, it checks for a constructor which takes zero parameter in the student class. Do we have a parameterless constructor in the student class? No, right? But just now we have seen that the Java compiler will create a default constructor for us, right? Then what is the problem here? The Java compiler will create a default constructor if and only if there are no constructors present in the class. If we look at the student class, do we have any constructor defined? Yes. In such cases, the Java compiler will not add the default constructor. Okay, in that case, can the developer explicitly add one parameterless constructor in the student class? Let's see that. So here I can say student. Okay. And if I scroll down here, you can see that the error is gone. This concept we have already learned in part 2 of object-oriented programming. Same method name with different parameters. It is called as method overloading. Similarly, constructor with different parameters are called as constructor overloading. All the method overloading rules are applicable to constructor overloading as well. Okay, so here we can have n number of constructors. To know more about method overloading, kindly watch part 2 of object-oriented programming. The link is shared in the description below. Now let me run this application in the terminal window. I can say Java main, and here you can see the output as 0 colon null. That is because, see, here we are creating the object of the student, okay, and here we are not passing any parameter. So that means that it will go and call the constructor with 0 parameters. And in this constructor, are we assigning any values to the private fields? No. So the default values of the private fields are assigned. So the default value of int is 0 and the default value of name is null. So the output is 0 colon null. But I want to assign id equal to 1 and name is equal to PRP. This we can achieve by calling the constructor with parameter. I mean, you can pass the id 1 over here and say, for example, I can say 1 comma, can say PRP. This is a valid code, right? Because we already have a constructor which is taking a parameter id and string. Okay, I don't want to do this. I don't want to call the constructor with parameters. By using the default constructor, is that possible to assign id equal to 1 and name equal to PRP? Yeah, that is possible. Like, okay, see, if I scroll up in the default constructor, here I can say this dot id equal to 1 and I will say this dot name is equal to PRP. So now if I go and run this application, we will get the output as 1 colon PRP. Okay, now if you look at this code here, we are actually repeating this code, right? It is always better to reuse code if possible. It would have been great if we could call this constructor, okay, I mean this constructor, by passing the value 1 and PRP. Is that possible in Java? Absolutely. For that, we can use the this keyword. This refers to the current instance of a class. So that means by using this, I can access anything inside this class. Constructor is also a part of this class, so I can invoke that as well. The moment I type this dot, say this dot, it shows all the properties as well as the methods of this class. But it is not showing the constructor, right? That is because the constructor is a specialized method without any return type. So it can be accessed by this followed by parenthesis. So remove this dot, you can use the parenthesis here. Okay. Immediately here you can see that it is showing 1/2. That means this class has 2 parameters. Now we need to decide which constructor needs to be called. Here I want to call the parameterized constructor. So here I will pass 1 comma PRP. Okay, semicolon. Okay, so now let me scroll down and here we are calling the parameterized constructor. So this time I don't want to call the parameterized constructor. Okay, so now let me go and run this application and see. In the terminal window, run the command java main, and here you can see the output as 1 colon PRP. So everything is working as expected. One important point to note here is that it is possible to invoke constructor only within another constructor. Now, if you try to invoke a constructor inside a method, you say this, immediately you are getting an error. If I hover, you can see that constructor call must be the first statement in a constructor. Okay, so let me explain some key characteristics of constructors in Java. They have the same name as the class. They do not have a return type, not even void. They are called when an object is created using the new keyword. They can take parameters which are used to initialize objects. Now, constructors are used to initialize objects with default or provided values, allocate memory for objects, and it can perform any necessary setup or initialization. So this is all about constructors in Java. If you find this video helpful, then please like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel and stay tuned for the next updates. Thank you.